we discuss Africa. We see what ails Africa. And today, this afternoon, we want to see whether Sudan will permanently remain a sick child of Africa. Is it a permanent sickness? Can we resolve the issues of Southern Sudan? Is it something that has gone wrong for 200 years? There has always been a problem in Southern Sudan, in that great region, starting from all the way the Alimadi Wars and the rest of all what happened until today. Peace seems to be elusive. Why has UN taken slow action? Why hasn't UN set up a tribunal? We want to see a tribunal that will make sure that Southern Sudan people are accountable. Those who committed crimes against the human beings. 20,000 Sudanese perished. They are perished. They are not accountable. Nobody can account for them. And we cannot sit here, go on hammering peace agreements without mechanisms of accountability. If we set a tribunal for Sierra Leone, for Rwanda, for Camera Rouge, we need somebody to stand up for the poor masses, the masses that have died, the masses that continue to die, the masses that are being brutalized, murdered, maimed on a daily basis by marauding armies of both Riek Machar and Salva Kiir. There must be an accountability. You are not going to sit here and tell people there is no accountability in Southern Sudan. There must be a tribunal. Why do we run to harass countries of Kenya, put ICC on Kenya, put ICC on this country, put ICC on Central African Republic? Why have we delayed on putting a tribunal for Southern Sudan to find out who is killing, who has been killing, how they have been killing people? Let me speak for the people in Southern Sudan, the women, the children who have not gone to school, the children who have no medicine, the children who have nothing, who have been running since 2013, and the war cannot end because of two people. Let them face the tribunal. I'm not going to keep quiet as a Pan-African to see Southern Sudan being maimed, being tortured, being cut, dismembered, and we keep quiet and watch people vote images of people, of malcontents singing to us in Uganda, in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in South Africa, telling us they have money. Let them face the international tribunal and tell the tribunal who gave them the guns, where they buying them, how they were killing people. Enough of is enough. Enough is enough for Africa. We have had enough. There is no need of that anymore. Enough is enough. And if people have died, they will not cry. We people who are left on planet Earth must cry for them. We must find justice for them. We must make sure that their leaders who go on bragging on television stations all over the world who are accountable. They must be behind bars. Good morning, viewers. Thank you very much. Welcome to the show, Diplomatic Leaks. Viewers across the world, thank you very much. This show, Diplomatic Leaks, goes behind the diplomatic lines to find out what has caused the elusiveness of the peace in South Sudan. This morning, therefore, we shall lay down the reasons. We shall also name, Douglas, we shall name the people. Douglas, we shall name the people who might be part and parcel of the dismembering of the state of South Sudan. Medium, just hold the fort first.
All right. Thank you so much. Apologies for that. But as Doctor has said, the issue of South Sudan is something that is a very current and very present conversation we have
Douglas,
on this on this platform. Doc, we can hear you. Um, Very well. So it is a story and a country that we've been following and tracking the events that have been happening, and we've been following the peace process that was signed, the revitalized peace process in particular, in 2018, and we've been trying to track the implementation of some of the articles that have been contained in that peace process, and a lot of very vital and important, things have not yet been implemented, and this has hampered greatly the peace process in South Sudan. So it is a situation that is dicey, and as the peace in South Sudan continues to be quite elusive. And from hope to war, dreams to despair, a South Sudan tortured decade has left the young country more fragile than ever, racked by political instability, violence and hunger. Now, the brutal conflict lasted 5 grinding years, costing 380,000 lives, displacing 4 million, and shattering any illusions of a fresh start. And we know the war that broke again in 2013, barely 2 years after gaining its independence, has lasted. The guns are a bit silenced, but we've seen in the recent past an increase in communal fights and communal killings, and that has been a cause of concern to stakeholders who have been supporting the peace process in South Sudan. So we are joined this morning by Dr. Joseph Nyanchama. Dr. Nyanchama, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Miriam, and my fellow panelists.
All right, thank you.
Listeners, wherever you are listening us from, thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm waiting for, Doc, are you able to continue?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Miriam. The situation in South Sudan presents a problem for all of us in East Africa. These are my comments that I want Kieni to Jerry to get them. The situation in Southern Sudan presents a problem for everybody in East and Central Africa. South Sudan peace process was poorly, badly arranged. That's point number one. The poor process that involved IGAD, the process of a peace process, the negotiations, the arrangement of agenda was badly done. South Sudan needed an overall United Nations supervision ambassadorial level or an envoy to specifically sit down, iron out, bring out and exclude the root causes of a renewed attempt for people to subdivide commanders, to pay commanders to rebel against others, and the new rebellion and the new mechanisms, new rebel groups that are being formed from neighboring countries under the auspices of those governments. I'm not going to keep quiet. I will say it as I know it. South Sudan at the moment needs the root of accountability. There is no peace that can grow in the world without accountability. The thousands and the thousands of South Sudanese who are in capitals across the world, some of them don't know where their parents are. They don't know who killed them, how they were killed, whether they are safe, whether they are alive. We have not identified that particular element. We have gone a wrong way in South Sudan by arranging political leadership, political peace. We have not arranged peace with a redemption strategy. The leaders of South Sudan will understand
Dr. Riek Machar is my mentor in terms of peace negotiation, mediation, conflict resolution. Is my mentor. President Salva Kiir is a friend. But until we come back and see why the peace is elusive, why every time the president is crying that there is a new threat to his power, why people divide Riek Machar's faction into several factions, who is doing this? What benefit are they trying to get out of this? They want to keep South Sudan fighting and fighting and fighting while they earn and earn and earn a living. When we are doing the peace process of northern Uganda, the LRA versus the government of Republic of Uganda, Miriam, believe me or not, we had very good, well set out agenda. And I want to thank President, the Vice President, the President, the President, the Vice President of South Sudan, President Salva Kiir, Dr. Riek Machar. They played a vital role in bringing peace in northern Uganda. They must be thanked for what they have done for us. We must help them to achieve that peace. That peace, that is tranquility, that is in Uganda, is a price South Sudan paid for the peace to be in Uganda. Therefore, if we don't speak out as leaders, as people who are going to sunset, we are no longer children anymore. When I was doing the Uganda peace process in South Sudan in Juba in 2005, I was about 50-something. Now I am in 65, going onward. I have started the project. I have started the conflict resolution mechanisms. I have studied the political science to the last iron on earth. Therefore, when I see a problem going on and on, the people want to bring peace, but peace cannot come. There must be people who are spoiling the peace. Where did this army called National Salvation Army, who funds this army in Central Equatoria? The generals are well known. They know where they sleep. They know where they draw their money. They know where they bank their money. Is somebody dismembering South Sudan for the sake of themselves? Who is dismembering South Sudan? The United Nations must take a stand. United Nations Security Council. We must go back to a drawing board. Ethiopia is in chaos. Somalia seems to be in more complication, bigger than what we call chaos. The center cannot hold anywhere in Mogadishu. The national broadcaster cannot broadcast the president's message. That's how bad the situation is. The revolution amongst the presidents in Somalia seems to be eating itself, Miriam. And therefore, it is very important for us to be very honest and tell the world the truth that there cannot be peace in South Sudan unless the people of South Sudan themselves are directed in a proper, peaceful, constructive engagement of accountability. Without accountability, forget it. Forget it. You cannot have accountability missing in a peace agreement. When we are negotiating in the Uganda peace process, one of the chapters that we put forward with Dr. Riek Machar and myself, and I'm still here, he's still alive, watching me as I speak. It's accountability chapter. Agenda number 5 was accountability. The central point of accountability in the South Sudan peace process is lukewarm. Measures on how you can't bring soldiers in a containment area without food, without uniforms, without salaries. The world is just making noise, telling South Sudan, oh, do this, do that, do that. But Miriam, in actual sense, there is nothing South Sudan can do now. They don't have the money. They don't have the money. The little money that is got out of the production of the oil is taxed to a level that by the time the money comes, with the conditions that are on the ground, it is swallowed into various small, big activities. So they don't have the money. Why is the world not calling for a donor conference? Similar to the donor conferences that the United Nations calls for Afghanistan, for Iraq, for other areas. Why? Because are we black that we cannot be called a donor conference? I'm speaking as a Pan-African today. If we are dead black, if we are being discriminated as Africans, that a donor conference cannot be called for a country that has called it and called out and called out and called out and said, we don't have the money. How are we going to attain peace, Miriam? Peace can be attained if there is enough funds to carry out the objectives of the peace process. That component in South Sudan is missing. I hope you have been noting down the components that are missing. The component of cash, the component of finances, the funding to make sure that you contain the soldiers in the same balance. The Minister of Defense is able to keep the soldiers paid salaries, food, accommodation, the betterment of their families. That component is missing. Therefore, the process will collapse. It will bring another war. Another point that is very crucial is accountability. The lack of accountability creates an uncertainty and creates a lot of enmity amongst the soldiers. Nobody knows who is who. What happened? People have not come out to say the truth. There are people, I know of people whom I know are missing, whom I used to know in 2005, 6, 7, 8, when I was in South Sudan. They died. They were killed. Accountability is very important. Another point is external forces. Who is funding the new rebel groups? Who funds the new rebel groups? Who is funding the group in Central Equatoria called the National Salvation Army or whatever you call it? Who funds them? Where are they getting the energy to disrupt the entire peace process? It's a point UN Security Council, and Kenya is a member of the United Nations Security Council. It's a point they must take on board, because the insecurity in that region could spill over to my own country, where we have had peace for over 12 years since we signed the 5 agendas. I'm equally concerned. The other point that we need to note is the funding issue, which we have already talked about. The nasty point is forgiveness, reconciliation, restitution, reparation. The healing process. The healing process is connected to accountability, truth telling. Truth telling. There are people who saw their friends come to kill their relatives and they survived. And if you bring them back and put them together without truth telling, you are killing a country again. That has to come out, Miriam. And those are some of the things why the peace is elusive. The lack of cash, the lack of accountability, the lack of redemption strategy, and the lack of United Nations decisiveness. United Nations has played hide and seek game on South Sudan. They don't want to call a donor conference. The country is bankrupt. It doesn't have the money. It has the people, but it has no money. And you cannot be telling them to have peace. No. No. I submit.
Thank you so much. Dr. David Matsanga, very important points that you've raised as to some of the challenges and some of the things that has made this peace in South Sudan to remain elusive. I don't know if on top of the list, and Doc, the things that you've pointed out, if the lack of willingness from the leadership of South Sudan could, be also one.
I had forgotten that point.
They don't seem
Can
to
I
want peace
emphasize
in that
it?
country.
Yes. The ego. The ego.
And the power struggles.
And I want to tell my two friends, the ego of the leadership. I'm honest. Dr. Riek Machar is my friend. When they had imprisoned him in South Africa, I am one of those who shouted loudest. They even called me a madman. Yes, the ambassador of South Sudan here in Kenya hated me because he said I'm Dr. Riek as a person. No. I was saying you cannot lock a person in South Africa and you claim to doing peace. It's rubbish. And I called it out. I put Dr. Riek Machar on this TV. It created me a lot of enmity. And I don't care. Because Dr. Riek Machar is my senior. He's my friend, a mentor. And I liked the way he mentored me into peace process. He brought peace in my own country. So I am not bothered whether you hate me or what. I'm not going to beg you. I don't care. I will not beg the government of South Sudan for anything. If they don't want me to come there, they are East Africans who shall meet in other streets. But the truth is that the ego must be toned down. The leadership must tone its ego. But okay, even if the leaders tone down the ego, Miriam, there is still a danger of external interference. There is still a danger of accountability. There is still a danger of no money. The country is bankrupt. Tuambiane ukweli, they said the truth. And nobody is helping them. Instead, they are whipping them that have peace, have peace. How do you have peace when you don't have the money to pay civil servants? How do you have peace when you don't have the money to run a government? How will you have peace when you cannot pay membership fee for African Union, for East African Community? How will you have peace when your oil is taxed, heavily taxed? These are factors that we should sit down as academics, as scholars in the region, and look at, instead of condemning Salva Kiir or condemning Riek Machar. You can condemn them until you reach heaven or hell, whichever direction you go, because there are so many ways that the people will go to either heaven or hell. Some will go as Muslims, some will go as pagans, some will go as Christians, some will go as Catholics, some will go as Muslim, Buddhists, some will go, there's Hindu. There are so many ways. You think there's only one way to go to God. But we must tell each other the truth. You cannot push South Sudan to peace when there is no money to pay for that peace. Let the United Nations bring money on board. Let them call, if they have no money, call a donor conference for the South Sudan. Yes. I've spoken elsewhere. When I spoke about Zimbabwe, they called me a madman. Today, Zimbabwe is a shining example. Moving on, Matanga stood firm. I was going to be assassinated. It is on record in Scotland Yard in London because of Zimbabwe. And I have no fear of standing up to speak for South Sudan. Instead of people making South Sudan a battlefield, let's look for money, give the people. Let's put a peace process that is workable, mechanisms. Sure, the mechanisms cannot work. I've stood firm on ICC. Nobody wanted to tackle the International Criminal Court in this one. I did. I won. I came. I saw. I conquered. Is the ICC worth it? Is the ICC worth it in Africa? Whatever I said is coming back. On 17th, is coming back. In Kenya on 17th is a D-Day because the people did not listen. I've stood firm against sanctions. I have never called for sanctions against my own country, Uganda. No. And I've told the Besige, my stand, don't call for sanctions. However bad the situation is on the ground, don't go and call these white guys to put sanctions on our people. Because the leadership can afford to fly to buy even food. You think if President Museveni wanted food to come from London hot for 8 hours, can't it arrive, Miriam? Can't it arrive? And the president on the African continent can be eating food from London. On a daily basis, he can eat dinner and supper. Because planes can come and deliver the food. But the local man on the ground will not have the access. You will be killing the local man. Sanctions in Africa, in the third world, destroy, they don't work. They kill the local populace. That's what I told Morgan Changarai. He never listened. He went ahead to see the maker. I will follow him. I told him, don't call sanctions against your country. Today, Zimbabwe is coming out of the progress. It's going on progress, roads, things are changing there. I tell you, the story is great because some of us stood by them. And we shall stand by the people of South Sudan to make sure that South Sudan goes to the right direction. The younger generation that is molested, called refugees across the world, must have a home, must return to their country, must celebrate their country, must always be part and parcel of their country. Let's bring no war. Let's not divide the people of South Sudan because of mercantile capitalism that is embedded in the doctrines of dismembering states in order to gain an upper hand to be called the big man of East and Central Africa. I rest my case.
Very well, thank you. Dr. Joseph Nyanchama.
Oh, thank you, Miriam, for the opportunity to lay in a few issues here about Southern Sudan. Absolutely, there has been a crisis in that country. And as a Christian, I usually say that nothing is permanent except God and His promises. Let the two leaders in Southern Sudan know, although that there has been a crisis in that country, they hold the key. And the key is this, Miriam: if they are willing to put aside their ego and with support from external parties, particularly resources, to rebuild the country, that country can go back on track and start rebuilding like Nehemiah rebuilt the wall of Jerusalem. I have thought of faith, Miriam, in that. But on condition, these two leaders do things, as I said, they put aside their ego, and with the support from third parties, bring in resources and begin to reconstruct. That is the price they can pay for their country. There is usually a common saying, Miriam, that the price of greatness is the greatness of the price. Machar and Alpha Kill, we appeal the Masfero Africans that it is a moment that they need to hit the call from fellow Africans like us to rebuild their country. How can they go about it? In the assumption that they will receive the money. Personally, I appeal that they isolate and they politicize sensitive issues as leaders. Because there are several clans there in a multi-clan or multi-ethnic society like Sudan, there will always be competition for status, resources, of course, and rewards. That is normal to any country. But sensitive issues are different. They need to operate beyond the framework of tolerance and accommodation which govern such competition between the two leaders. In other words, Miriam, what I'm saying is that they need to isolate and depoliticize sensitive issues. Miriam, if they do, and there is support from world organizations, AU, well-wishers who pump in the cash to pay military officers, and now there is a national call that we need to end the crisis. I think there is light always at the end of the tunnel. Number two, they need, as leaders, steer what we call the build a stakeholder society and take responsibility. Because a nation like Sudan belongs to its people, not just to some of them. And if they approach it that way, I think they will be able to get the peace. And I emphasize there has to be accountability, and the people who are saying they are willing to support Sudan in good faith, they need to bring in cash, as Dr. Masanga said. Million. If we do that, and I don't want to go into deeper aspects of it, Sudan will achieve peace. Let them be intelligent. And I want to share with them what one of the top American novelists says, that the intelligence of a leader or of a man is when he has two contrasting issues at the same moment. In other words, you may be confronted with two issues. either to cross the bridge or to burn the bridge. Let them cross the bridge of peace and shun burning the bridge of peace. If they do, then they are categorized as intelligent leaders and they will be read in history. Because ego for a man brings no benefit to the man. I hope the two leaders are listening. With the support like the Pan-Africans like Dr. Mashanga and others, I think peace will be in that country. For now, Miriam, I submit.
Very well, thank you. Dr. Joseph Nyanchama. I don't know if we still have Douglas Kirimi. Douglas?
He's not there.
All right, so we end the show.
I can summarize, Miriam, for you as we end. It's 10 minutes past 12. Sudan, South Sudan remains a sister country in the East African community. South Sudan needs help. The international community should not sit and just yap by telling South Sudan to have peace. The peace in South Sudan is elusive. It is better to handle the peace the way the elusive peace as it is than to go back to the war that we saw in 2013, 2012, 2013. It is important, therefore, for the international community, for the United Nations Security Council, and the United Nations itself, to put South Sudan under the management of a special envoyship who can hold a donor conference. South Sudan is crying, it has no food, it has no facilities, it has no money. The humanitarian catastrophe in that region goes from worse, bad to worse, and the worst situations are coming. It is therefore important for the world to know. We as journalists and we as the media on the social media, we call upon the world to understand the difficulties of the people of South Sudan. But we also call upon the leaders of South Sudan to put aside and know that the country is bigger than themselves. Those who are fragmenting the armies and creating divisions should be told to stop doing so. South Sudan needs all of us, and it needs prayers. Thank you very much, Miriam.
All right, and that is where we end our show this afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Diplomatic Clicks. Thank you, Dr. Matanga. Dr. Joseph Nyanchama. Kirimi had a bit of a technical hitch, so he was not able to give us his contribution right now. I'll see you later at 3 p.m. East African time for more news from across the continent. My name is Miriam Ogotu. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye for now.